So here's something that you're learning in pre-calculus. It's called sequences, and there's two main sequences. There's not only two sequences, but there's two ones that are really easy to work with, and so that's what you're learning when you first learn sequences. The first one's called arithmetic. Arithmetic sequences are sequences of numbers that have a common difference between the numbers. So that's an arithmetic sequence because the common difference between them is 2. So arithmetic, you think of a common difference between terms, consecutive terms, or you could say terms as well, but there's a common difference. Geometric sequences have a common ratio between terms. So for instance, arithmetic might be 1, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, etc. Here on the arithmetic one at the top, the common difference, which we usually call D, is equal to 2. Here, the common ratio, which we call R, is equal to 1/2. How do you get from this term to this term? You multiply by 1/2. This term to this term, multiply by 1/2, etc. So that's the basic definition. Now let's talk about the formulas for it. The formulas follow directly from the definitions. If you understand the definitions, the formulas are easy. So let's try to see if we can get this. These are called explicit formulas because I'm writing a formula out based upon the number of term that it is. So here's n equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my term, and this is my nth term. My nth term is a sub n. And how can I define a sub n? Well, what you do is you start with the first term, a sub 1, and you add to that the common difference. How many times? How many times to get, when I got to the second term, how many times did I add the common difference? I added it 1 time. How many times did I add the common difference to get to the third term? 2 times. 1, 2. To get to the fourth term, I added the common difference 1, 2, 3 times. So what are you doing? You're starting with the first term, and you're adding the common difference 1 less than the number of term you're on.
Okay.
So if I'm on the first term, I'll change colors here for you. If I'm on the first term, I'm going to add the common difference 0 times, and I'm going to get the first term. If I'm on the second term, I'm going to add the common difference 1 time. 2 minus 1 is 1, times d is d, 1d, which means I'm going to get to that second term, etc. So there's your formula based upon the definition. And you can simplify this a little bit. A lot of times you'll see the formula written in different ways. If you simplified it, you would get, our book actually calls it a sub n equals d times n plus some number c, and this number c they define to be 1 plus d. So what they're basically doing is they're taking, I'm sorry, not 1 plus d, 1 minus d. They're subtracting the difference from a sub 1, and then they're adding d n's to it. I'm sorry, n d's to it. So they would say, instead of starting at 1, they would go back to -1, subtract 2, and that's their c right there. And then you add whichever term you're on, you add that many d's to get to the next term. It's really the same formula. I prefer the red formula up here. It makes more sense to me to think about. It also makes sense when you think about this formula down here, because the geometric, now if you understand how we came up with that, the geometric formula would just be a sub n equals, we're going to start with the first term, and we're going to multiply it by a bunch of r's. How many r's are we going to multiply by? Well, just like it did here, we're going to multiply it by n minus 1 r's. So think it through. On this, if I'm on the second term, let's go with the first term. If I'm on the first term, if n equals 1, I'm multiplying it by 0 r's. So I'm not multiplying it by anything, which means I'm multiplying it by 1. which means I get a sub 1. If r is 2, I'm multiplying it by r 2 minus 1 times, which means I'm multiplying it by 1r, and that's how I get my second term. And then if n is 3, 3 minus 1 is 2, I'm multiplying it by r. R squared means I'm multiplying it by r once, and then I'm multiplying it by r again, and that's how I get this term, etc. So those are your basic definitions and formulas for arithmetic and geometric sequences.